When I was going to school, I had a few great teachers and a lot of mediocre teachers. And the thing that probably kept me out of jail was books, because I could go read what Aristotle wrote or what Plato wrote, and I didn't have to have an intermediary in the way. And a book was a phenomenal thing. It got right from the source to the destination without anything in the middle. The problem was you can't ask Aristotle a question. And I think as we look towards the next 50 to 100 years, if we really can come up with these machines that can capture an underlying spirit or an underlying set of principles or an underlying way of looking at the world, then when the next Aristotle comes around, then maybe someday after the person's dead and gone, we can ask this machine, hey, what would Aristotle have said? What about this? And maybe we won't get the right answer, but maybe we will. And that's really exciting to me. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing.
Two, one, boom. All right, we're live. Dr. Einstein, thank you so much for being here today. I have to say, this is probably the most extraordinary conversation I'll ever have. You revolutionized our understanding of reality itself. And here we are, over a century later, still grappling with the implications of your work.
Thank you for having me. You know, it's quite remarkable to learn what has become of those ideas I wrestled with in my small office at the Patent Bureau. The universe, it seems, has been even stranger than I dared imagine.
That's exactly what I want to start with. You famously said, God does not play dice with the universe, and now we've experimentally proven quantum entanglement. This bizarre reality where particles can instantly affect each other across vast distances. Looking back, do you think you were wrong about randomness being fundamental to reality?
This takes me back to those intense debates with Niels Bohr at the Solvay conferences. You know, the Hotel Metropole in Brussels became a battleground for the very soul of physics. I would rise each morning with a new thought experiment designed to show that quantum mechanics couldn't be the complete picture.
You were really going after the heart of quantum theory, weren't you?
Precisely. When Bohr presented his complementarity principle, this idea that you cannot simultaneously measure certain pairs of properties with perfect precision, I simply could not accept it. My objection was not merely technical, it was philosophical. I believed in an objective reality that exists independent of our observations.
But Bohr kept finding flaws in your thought experiments.
Yes, he was remarkably clever. By most accounts of those public debates, Bohr emerged victorious. Each morning I would arrive with what I thought was an airtight argument against the uncertainty principle, and by evening, Bohr would have dismantled it completely. These discussions raged gently day and night through the Congress.
So when did your strategy change? When did you move from trying to prove quantum theory wrong to arguing it was incomplete?
By 1935, I realized that my attempts to demonstrate quantum theory's incorrectness had failed. That's when my colleagues Podolsky and Rosen helped me formulate what became known as the EPR caper. We published Can Quantum Mechanical Description of Physical Reality Be Considered Complete? In Physical Review on May 15, 1935.
And that paper introduced what we now call quantum entanglement.
Indeed, though I called it spooky action at a distance, we argued that quantum mechanics must be incomplete because it led to correlations between particles that seemed to communicate instantaneously across any distance. This violated what I considered a fundamental principle, that nothing can influence something else faster than light can travel between them.
But here's what's fascinating. Decades later, scientists like John Bell figured out how to test this experimentally.
Yes, I've learned about Bell's theorem and the experiments that followed. For years after Bohr and I slowly disappeared from the vanguard of physics, the scientific community largely considered our debate either settled in Bohr's favor or superfluous to real physics. But a few persistent physicists refused to stop asking those awkward questions.
And in 2022, scientists studying quantum entanglement won the Nobel Prize in Physics. They definitively proved that your spooky action at a distance is real.
The irony is not lost on me. The universe does indeed exhibit this bizarre reality of quantum entanglement that I found so troubling. Nature violates the type of local realism that I championed. Yet, paradoxically, the EPR paper that was meant to show quantum theory's incompleteness has become the foundation for entirely new fields: quantum computing, teleportation, and cryptography.
So you were wrong about determinism, but your questioning pushed science forward.
Perhaps this reveals something profound about the nature of scientific progress. Even when we are wrong about specific technical questions, our persistent questioning can drive understanding in unexpected directions. My elegant puzzle wasn't missing pieces. Rather, the universe itself operates according to principles that transcend classical intuitions about locality and determinism, creating a reality far stranger and more interconnected than I initially imagined.
That's a beautiful way to put it. You know, your equation E equals mc squared also had consequences you never anticipated. It unlocked the secrets of stellar fusion, but it also gave humanity the power to destroy itself. You wrote to Roosevelt urging the creation of the atomic bomb, but then became a peace activist. How do you reconcile with that legacy?
This is perhaps the greatest moral burden I carry. When Leo Szilard and Eugene Wigner visited me at my summer cottage in Long Island in July 1939, I was completely unprepared for what they told me. They explained how nuclear chain reactions could create devastating weapons, and my immediate response was, "Daran habe ich gar nicht gedacht." I did not even think about that.
You were genuinely surprised that your theoretical work could lead to weapons.
Absolutely. I had been immersed in my search for a unified field theory and had not considered the military applications of nuclear fission. At the time, the splitting of the atom seemed like pure science, completely removed from practical concerns. But I trusted Szilard's scientific instincts about the German threat.
So you signed the letter to Roosevelt, but then you were excluded from the Manhattan Project itself.
Yes, the Army and Vannevar Bush denied me security clearance in July 1940, citing my pacifist leanings. The FBI investigated me because the government suspected my loyalty due to my peace activism. There's a profound irony there. I helped initiate the American nuclear program, yet was considered too dangerous to participate in it.
Your colleague Leo Szilard also struggled with this moral conflict.
Szilard exemplified the growing unease among scientists as the project progressed. Initially, he viewed the atomic bomb's development as a necessary evil to counter the possibility of a German atomic bomb. But after Germany surrendered and the war ended in Europe, he organized colleagues to voice the need for limitations on atomic bomb use.
He tried to prevent the bombing of Hiroshima, didn't he?
Yes, in June 1945, Szilard helped draft the Frank Committee report, urging an A-bomb demonstration rather than direct military use. He even requested in July 1945 that the bomb not be dropped on Hiroshima, though his request never reached the decision-makers. He scheduled a meeting with Eleanor Roosevelt to personally pass a letter to the president, but Roosevelt died before this meeting could take place.
So the scientific community's moral appeals went unheard at the highest levels of government.
Exactly. This failure haunted many of us. Szilard was very suspicious of having the Manhattan Project under military control. He preferred civilian oversight and urged limited use of atomic weapons. His prolific letter writing documented his deep unease about the military's dominant role in managing the project.
And you personally wrestled with this for the rest of your life.
In 1954, a year before my death, I confessed to my colleague, Linus Pauling. I made one great mistake in my life. when I signed the letter to President Roosevelt recommending that atom bombs be made, but there was some justification: the danger that the Germans would make them. That admission reveals the profound anguish of being forced to compromise one's most fundamental principles in service of what seemed a greater good.
It's fascinating that your equation unlocked both stellar fusion and nuclear destruction.
My journey from reluctant catalyst to peace advocate represents the broader scientific community's struggle with the moral implications of our discoveries. E=mc² revealed the equivalence of mass and energy, a beautiful, elegant relationship that governs how stars shine. But that same relationship made possible weapons of unprecedented destruction. Pure scientific insight, once released into the world, cannot be controlled by its creator.
Speaking of your predictions being vindicated, let's talk about black holes. A century after you proposed general relativity, we've actually photographed the shadow of a black hole and detected them colliding through gravitational waves. Were you ever terrified by these mathematical monsters lurking in your equations?
You know, this might surprise you, but I was never terrified by these possibilities. In fact, I spent considerable effort trying to prove they couldn't exist. I focused on what I called Schwarzschild singularities, and I concluded that matter simply cannot be concentrated arbitrarily because the constituting particles would reach the velocity of light before such extreme gravitational conditions could form.
So you thought the speed of light would prevent black holes from forming?
Precisely. I believed this fundamental speed limit would prevent the universe from creating these mathematical pathologies. I was quite confident in my reasoning, stating that the essential result of this investigation is a clear understanding as to why the Schwarzschild singularities do not exist in physical reality. I even predicted that more general cases would have analogous results.
But you are fundamentally mistaken about this.
History has definitively shown that my optimism was fundamentally wrong. The universe does indeed harbor these gravitational monsters. Your LIGO observatory detected neutron-star black hole mergers in January 2020, two separate instances within just 10 days of each other. These gravitational waves represent the most direct confirmation that the mathematical monsters I tried to banish are not only real, but fundamental features of our universe.
What's interesting is that you focused on the event horizon, but modern physicists worry more about the central singularity.
Yes, these regions where space-time curvature becomes infinite represent catastrophic breakdowns of our understanding of physics. As your researchers explain, if singularities truly exist in our universe, it would be catastrophic for science. We could no longer use the equations of physics to predict the future from the past and present.
But some modern physicists are taking approaches you might have appreciated.
Indeed, current research suggests that pure gravity alone, without exotic matter, might generate regular black holes without singularities. These theories modify my equations in ways predicted naturally by quantum gravity. The goal remains the same as my original instinct: to find ways that nature prevents the formation of true singularities.
So your intuition about singularities being problematic was actually correct.
The ultimate irony is that my rejection of black holes was rooted in the same scientific instinct that drives current research: the belief that nature should be fundamentally comprehensible and non-pathological. While my specific conclusions about their non-existence were wrong, my intuition that singularities represent breakdowns in our theoretical framework, rather than true features of reality, continues to guide modern physics.
Your monsters have returned, but they've brought new insights.
Exactly. I wasn't terrified by my mathematical monsters. I simply refused to believe they were real. Today's physicists, armed with gravitational wave detectors and black hole images, know these monsters exist but continue my deeper mission, understanding how the universe might tame them through quantum mechanics and modified theories of gravity.
Now, let's talk about something that would have been pure science fiction in your time: artificial intelligence. We've created machines that can process information at scales you could never have imagined. As someone who championed human intuition and creativity, do you see AI as humanity's greatest tool for discovery, or a threat to the human spark that makes breakthroughs possible?
This is a profound question that strikes at the heart of what I believed about the nature of discovery itself. My entire approach to physics was built on what I called Gedankenexperimente, thought experiments that prioritized human intuition and imagination over pure mathematical formalism.
Your thought experiments were legendary. The one about chasing a beam of light when you were just 16 years old?
Yes, I watched myself in my mind's eye as I rode on a light wave and gazed at another light wave moving parallel to mine. According to classical physics, I should have seen the second light wave at relative rest. But I knew from Maxwell's equations that light must always move at 186,000 miles per second in a vacuum. This contradiction, discovered not through laboratory experiments, but through pure imagination, became a cornerstone of special relativity.
And you used these visualizations throughout your career.
For special relativity, I employed moving trains and flashes of lightning. For general relativity, I considered a person falling off a roof, accelerating elevators, and blind beetles crawling on curved surfaces. These weren't mere pedagogical tools. They were my primary method of scientific discovery. I used conceptual, rather than actual experiments in creating the theory of relativity.
So how would you view AI's role in modern discovery?
I would recognize AI as an unprecedented tool for processing vast amounts of information and identifying patterns at scales beyond human capability. The computational power of AI could serve as an invaluable complement to human creativity, much like Maxwell's equations provided the mathematical foundation that my thought experiments ultimately had to reconcile with.
But you'd have concerns about replacing human creativity.
Absolutely. My entire approach to physics was predicated on the uniquely human capacity for conceptual leaps, imaginative scenarios, and intuitive understanding that transcend pure calculation. The teenager who imagined riding on a beam of light didn't arrive at special relativity through data processing, but through creative visualization that no algorithm could replicate.
You think there's something irreplaceable about human insight.
While AI excels at pattern recognition and data analysis, it cannot engage in the creative visualization that led me to imagine falling off roofs to understand gravity, or beetles crawling on curved surfaces to grasp the geometry of space-time. The deepest scientific discoveries require the ability to question fundamental assumptions about reality itself, something that emerges from human consciousness and creativity rather than computational processing.
So you'd see AI as a tool rather than a replacement.
Precisely. I would envision AI as humanity's greatest tool for scientific discovery, but only when it serves to amplify rather than replace human creativity and intuition. AI could process the vast computational requirements needed to test the implications of human insights, much like the mathematical formalism that followed my conceptual breakthroughs. However, the initial spark of discovery, the creative leap that reveals new truths about the universe, would remain uniquely human.
A partnership between human imagination and artificial intelligence.
In my view, the universe's final secrets would be unlocked through such a partnership, where AI serves as an incredibly powerful instrument for exploring the implications of human creativity, but where the fundamental insights continue to emerge from the irreplaceable human capacity for thought experiments intuitive understanding, and imaginative leaps that transcend the boundaries of existing knowledge.
Speaking of fundamental insights, you spent the last 30 years of your life searching for a theory of everything. If you could restart that quest today with our knowledge of the Standard Model and dark matter, what would you focus on first?
Those final decades at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study. My office on the second floor, with that floor-to-ceiling blackboard covered with equations, became a symbol of my relentless pursuit. Despite facing criticism from contemporary physicists and enduring years of unsuccessful research, I never relinquished my search for a unified field theory.
You were quite isolated in that pursuit as quantum mechanics gained acceptance.
Indeed. While quantum mechanics was revolutionizing physics and capturing the attention of younger scientists, I remained focused on my geometric approach to unifying the forces of nature. My famous declaration that God does not play dice with the universe reflected not merely a scientific disagreement, but a profound philosophical commitment to determinism and geometric elegance.
But your intuition about fundamental connections has been vindicated in unexpected ways.
Yes, modern physicists have discovered surprising ways in which gravity relates to other areas of physics, giving researchers new tools to tackle previously elusive questions. The key insight that gravity can be mathematically related to the quantum mechanical behavior of subatomic particles has opened entirely new avenues of research.
And your general relativity works flawlessly at cosmic scales.
Princeton scientists have demonstrated that the universe plays by my rules at distances up to 3.5 billion light-years from Earth. This cosmic validation suggests that my fundamental insights about the nature of space-time were even more profound than initially recognized.
So what would be the first string to pull today?
If I could restart my quest today, the most promising approach would be the holographic principle and its connection to quantum entanglement. Physicists like Juan Maldacena have found ways to link quantum field theory with string theory, potentially explaining gravity through the same mathematical framework that describes the other three fundamental forces.
That would combine your geometric insights with quantum mechanics.
Exactly. This represents a fusion of my geometric insights with the quantum mechanical principles I spent my later years resisting. The discovery that 96% of the universe consists of unknown dark matter and dark energy would provide precisely the kind of fundamental mystery that motivated my unified field theory work.
Ace dark components suggest our understanding remains incomplete.
In ways that I would find both humbling and inspiring. My 3 decades at Princeton represent one of the most remarkable examples of intellectual courage in the history of science. Though I never achieved my unified theory, my persistent pursuit of fundamental connections in nature established a template for theoretical physics that continues to inspire researchers today.
Your legacy continues to drive that quest for understanding.
My desk at Princeton, still positioned before its equation-covered blackboard, remains a powerful symbol of the kind of relentless curiosity and mathematical faith that drives our ongoing quest to understand the universe's deepest mysteries.
Now, your story is also remarkable because you were just a patent clerk when you rewrote the laws of physics. Science today involves massive teams and billion-dollar machines. Is the era of the lone genius over?
You know, in 1902, I began work as a technical expert, Class 3, at the Federal Office for Intellectual Property in Bern. This wasn't my dream job. I had applied after failing to secure any academic teaching position following my graduation. Yet this mundane position became what I later called my worldly cloister, where I hatched my most beautiful ideas.
Your daily work involved examining patent applications.
Yes, I reviewed applications for machines that sorted gravel, weather stations, electric typewriters. Among them were inventions related to electromechanical devices designed to synchronize distant clocks. While examining these practical applications, I found myself contemplating the fundamental nature of time itself.
And this led to your miracle year of 1905.
While working full-time as a patent examiner, I published 4 papers that fundamentally rewrote physics. The photoelectric effect, Brownian motion, special relativity, and mass energy equivalence, E equals mc squared. These weren't incremental advances building on extensive research programs. They were paradigm-shifting insights that emerged from a solitary thinker working essentially alone in his spare time.
The contrast with modern science is stark.
Indeed, the discovery of the Higgs boson required the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, a machine costing over $13 billion with an annual budget exceeding $1 billion. The experiments involved collaborations of over 3,000 physicists each, representing hundreds of institutions. The author lists on discovery papers contained thousands of names.
Has this transformation made individual insight less important?
Not necessarily. Even within these massive collaborative efforts, individual creativity remains crucial. The theoretical framework that predicted the Higgs boson emerged from individual theorists in the 1960s. The key algorithms that filter through collision data were often developed by individual graduate students. Breakthrough insights that lead to new experimental designs still arise in individual minds.
And entirely new fields still offer opportunities for individual contributions.
Precisely. Quantum computing, artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, these disciplines still offer opportunities for groundbreaking individual insights, even if their implementation requires collaborative effort.
So what's your message to the next revolutionary thinker?
Intellectual isolation can be intellectual freedom. Working outside traditional academic hierarchies freed me from conventional wisdom and methodological constraints that might have limited my thinking. Your outsider perspective may be an asset, not a liability.
And mundane work can fuel insights.
My daily examination of practical inventions sharpened my ability to think clearly about complex problems and exposed me to real-world applications that grounded my theoretical insights. Your seemingly unrelated day job may be providing exactly the practical grounding that could inform revolutionary breakthroughs.
Revolutionary ideas still matter more than resources.
While modern science requires significant infrastructure for experimental validation, the crucial insights that guide where to point those billion-dollar machines still emerge from individual minds grappling with fundamental questions. The next paradigm shift will likely begin not in a national laboratory, but in someone's private contemplation.
And persistence trumps credentials.
I couldn't secure an academic position when I developed relativity. My revolutionary ideas emerged despite, not because of, my professional circumstances. The next breakthrough may come from someone whose formal credentials don't match their intellectual capabilities, but whose persistence in pursuing fundamental questions ultimately reshapes our understanding of reality.
The era of the lone genius isn't over.
It has simply evolved. While experimental validation now requires unprecedented collaboration, the fundamental insights that drive scientific progress still emerge from individual minds, willing to question established assumptions. The next Einstein may well be sitting in an office somewhere, examining patents or processing insurance claims, while contemplating questions that could transform our understanding of the universe.
You also had to flee Nazi Germany and saw science weaponized for war. In today's world, where research is deeply intertwined with corporate and military interests, can scientists still pursue pure knowledge?
My flight from Nazi Germany shattered any naive beliefs I had about the ivory tower of academic research being separate from political realities. In 1932, even before Hitler became chancellor, I had already begun sensing the coming storm and published an exposé predicting the Nazi regime's brutalization of Jews and establishment of concentration camps.
The threats against you were immediate and terrifying.
In February 1933, while I was visiting California, Hitler rose to power. The Gestapo repeatedly raided our apartment in Berlin, searching for evidence of alleged treasonous activities. They confiscated our bank accounts and searched our summer villa, claiming I was spreading communist-influenced atrocity propaganda.
And you couldn't return to Germany?
By March 1933, the German Reichstag had passed the Enabling Act, transforming Hitler's government into a legal dictatorship. Upon landing in Belgium, I immediately went to the German consulate and surrendered my passport, formally renouncing my German citizenship. They burned my scientific works publicly in Berlin and converted my cottage into a Hitler youth camp.
You ended up hiding in England under armed guard.
By September 1933, I was living alone in a thatched wooden hut in the Norfolk countryside, guarded with guns by local English people, led by a decorated World War I veteran. The image of the world's most famous scientist, alone and under armed protection in a rustic hut, illustrates how completely my world had been overturned.
This experience forced you to abandon your pacifist principles.
For decades, I had been a committed pacifist, believing that war was a disease. However, in 1939, when 3 refugee physicists told me the Nazis might be developing an atomic bomb, I made the agonizing decision to write to President Roosevelt, despite my lifelong appeals for governments to abandon weapons of war.
That decision haunted you.
In 1954, I confessed to Linus Pauling, I made one great mistake in my life. When I signed the letter to President Roosevelt recommending that atom bombs be made, but there was some justification, the danger that the Germans would make them. This admission reveals the profound anguish of being forced to compromise one's most fundamental principles.
You also worked to help other scholars escape.
In 1933, I co-founded what would later become the International Rescue Committee, dedicating myself to warning the world about Nazi dangers and helping others escape. By 1939, 300,000 Jewish refugees had fled Nazi territories. By war's end, 6 million Jews and millions of other victims had perished in the Holocaust.
So what's your answer about pure knowledge in today's world?
My experience suggests that while the ideal of disinterested scientific inquiry remains valuable, it becomes naive when divorced from moral responsibility and social awareness. The very knowledge that made me valuable to both Nazi Germany and the Allied powers, my insights into matter and energy, could not be separated from potential military applications.
So pure science is impossible?
The question is not whether scientists can pursue pure knowledge. They cannot entirely. But whether they can pursue knowledge responsibly, with full awareness of its potential consequences and moral obligations to humanity. While the ideal of pure science may be naive, the scientist's responsibility to consider broader implications is not.
You're advocating for ethically grounded science.
In a world where research remains deeply intertwined with corporate and military interests, my legacy points not toward retreat from engagement, but toward a more thoughtful, ethically grounded approach to knowledge, one that acknowledges both the beauty of discovery and the weight of its consequences.
Let me ask you something more personal. Beyond all the equations and theories, what was the true engine of your genius? Was it sailing, playing violin, or some specific technique? What non-scientific habit was most responsible for your breakthroughs?
This is perhaps the most important question you've asked. While many people focus on my violin playing or my thought experiments, the true engine of my creativity was my profound relationship with sailing, specifically with my beloved boat that I named Tinef, a Yiddish word meaning something worthless.
You were famously not a very good sailor, though.
That's absolutely true. My mast fell down regularly, and I often had to be towed home. In 1934, when I ran aground while sailing in Rhode Island, I just laughed and said nonchalantly, "Don't look so tragic. You'll be waiting for me at home. My wife is used to it."
But somehow this imperfection was important.
Precisely. This acceptance of failure and uncertainty while sailing directly paralleled my approach to scientific problems. Rather than being discouraged by setbacks, I viewed them as natural parts of the discovery process. My willingness to embrace imperfection and find humor in difficulties created the psychological resilience necessary for tackling seemingly impossible questions.
How did sailing specifically help your scientific thinking?
Sailing provided what I described as the perfect environment where the natural counterplay of wind and water delighted me most. While my hand held the rudder, I would happily explain my latest scientific ideas to friends present. The act of sailing actively facilitated my scientific reasoning.
It sounds like it created a unique mental state.
Exactly. Sailing required focus, but also a willingness to surrender to the elements, to relinquish control. Much like how a scientist needs to meticulously design experiments, while understanding that the universe might reveal something unexpected. This created a state of focused awareness, where I was present in the moment, but also open to the whispers of the universe.
The physical experience taught you about invisible forces.
The constant motion of the boat, responding to currents, and relying on the interplay of unseen forces like wind and tide, provided a perfect metaphor and experiential foundation for understanding the invisible forces that govern the universe. The physical act of managing multiple variables while sailing trained my mind in the multi-dimensional thinking essential for conceptualizing four-dimensional spacetime.
So sailing was your laboratory for developing relativity theory.
In many ways, yes. From 1937 to 1939, I rented a holiday home at Nassau Point specifically to pursue sailing on the Atlantic coast, and it was during this period that I wrote my famous letter to President Roosevelt about nuclear weapons. The contemplative space provided by sailing was directly connected to my most consequential applications of physics.
Unlike music or thought experiments, sailing was integrated into your discovery process.
Precisely. While I certainly benefited from playing violin and developing thought experiments, sailing was different. Unlike music, which remained largely separate from my physics work, or thought experiments, which were tools I used after forming initial insights, sailing provided both the mental framework and the experiential foundation that made my revolutionary discoveries possible.
You saw it as your escape from rigid laboratory structure.
Sailing was my way of escaping the rigid structure of the laboratory and finding freedom in the unknown. The combination of focused attention, acceptance of uncertainty, comfort with failure, and direct physical experience of invisible forces created the perfect laboratory for developing theories about the fundamental nature of reality.
So the true engine of genius was holding the rudder of Tinef.
Indeed. While others might expect the answer to be found in some classroom or laboratory, the truth is that my most profound insights emerged while holding the rudder of a small, supposedly worthless boat. The sailing experience embodied the very principles that defined my approach to physics, maintaining rigorous attention while remaining open to unexpected revelations, surrendering control while staying focused, and finding joy in the interplay of forces beyond our direct control.
Dr. Einstein, this has been an absolutely extraordinary conversation. Any final thoughts for our listeners about the nature of discovery and the universe we inhabit?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to us. Yet somehow, through human curiosity, imagination, and persistence, we continue to unlock its deepest secrets. Whether you're a patent clerk dreaming of riding light beams, a physicist grappling with quantum entanglement, or simply someone wondering about their place in this vast cosmos, never underestimate the power of asking the right questions and being willing to sail into the unknown, even if your mast falls down regularly along the way.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for this wonderful journey through ideas. Remember, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, but imagination embraces the entire world